It's something that really happened, except for one minor detail. The whole thing was fake. Operation Mincemeat, as it was known, was a British deception operation to trick the enemy into thinking that the Allies would invade Greece instead of Sicily.
Imagine dropping a dead man into the sea, carrying secrets so convincing they fool an entire enemy army, changing the course of World War II. This wasn't a spy thriller or fiction. It was a real operation known as Mincemeat. How did a simple act of deception convince Germany to divert its forces and pave the way for a crucial Allied victory?
You would think that finding a dead body during World War II wouldn't be too difficult, but it had to be the right one. It needed to fool the Germans into thinking that he had died in an aircraft disaster, landed in the sea, and then floated ashore.
During the Second World War, intelligence played a crucial role in shaping the outcomes of battles and entire campaigns. One of the most remarkable and daring intelligence operations carried out by the British was Operation Mincemeat. This mission involved planting false information to mislead the German military about the Allies' invasion plans, and it depended heavily on secrecy, deception, and a carefully crafted story. The backdrop to Operation Mincemeat was the Allied effort to invade Sicily in 1943. The Allies wanted to establish a foothold in southern Europe, but the Germans had heavily fortified the Mediterranean coastlines, making any landing risky and potentially very costly in terms of lives. British intelligence understood that misleading the German forces about the real invasion target could reduce their defenses in Sicily, increasing the chances of a successful landing. One challenge was figuring out the best way to deliver false information directly into German hands. Spain, under General Franco's regime, was officially neutral, but had sympathies towards the Axis powers, including Nazi Germany. This made it a complex but valuable area for intelligence operations. British agents needed to place false intelligence where German agents operating in Spain could find it, without raising suspicion. To accomplish this, British intelligence sought someone on the ground in Spain who could reliably get the false information to the Germans. The ideal location needed to be a port town with a strong German presence, and the ideal recipient had to be a trusted and well-connected German spy. Their choice was the fishing port of Huelva, located on the Spanish coast. Huelva was home to a large German community, and importantly, its chief of police was known to be very pro-German. The key figure the British aimed to deceive was Adolf Claus, a Nazi spy who had established himself in Huelva under the cover of an agricultural technician. Claus was an efficient and highly trusted operative working for the Abwehr, the German military intelligence service. His network was the most active and effective in Spain, and if any significant intelligence or suspicious items surfaced near Huelva, Claus would likely be the first to hear about it. British intelligence needed to ensure that Claus would receive the false information and believe it was genuine. The plan was to create a believable story centered around a dead British officer who was carrying secret documents. This officer, known in the operation as Major William Martin, was completely fictional. The aim was for the body of Major Martin to wash up on the Spanish shore near Huelva, carrying documents that appeared authentic and revealing false plans for an invasion of Greece. The idea was that Claus, upon discovering the body and its documents, would pass the information along to German intelligence, setting in motion the German forces to divert their attention and troops away from Sicily. This would ease the way for the Allied invasion. But getting a dead body to wash ashore in the right place without attracting suspicion was a difficult challenge. After considering various options, British planners decided that the best way to deliver the body was by submarine. A submarine could approach the Spanish coast silently and under the cover of darkness, release the body into the sea, and retreat before being spotted. This method was preferred over airdrops, which were riskier and more visible. The submarine chosen for this mission was the HMS Seraph, a vessel specifically designed for covert operations in restricted waters such as the North Sea and the Mediterranean. The Seraph was captained by Richard Jewell, a trusted and discreet officer known for his ability to carry out sensitive missions successfully. Another important aspect of the plan was to ensure the body would look as realistic as possible. The body had to be preserved so that it did not decompose before washing ashore, which would have raised doubts about its authenticity. To solve this problem, the British enlisted the help of Charles Fraser Smith, an expert in disguises and gadgets who worked for British intelligence. Fraser Smith was the inspiration for the character Q in Ian Fleming's James Bond novels. Fraser Smith was tasked with designing a special container to transport the body. This container was made from steel, approximately 6.5 feet long, with one end permanently sealed and the other fitted with an airtight lid that could be removed easily. The body was placed inside the container on dry ice to keep it cold and prevent decomposition, and the air was removed to slow down the decay process further. Throughout this process, Fraser Smith was not told the true nature of the container or the operation. He was simply told it was for a floating weather station, a cover story to maintain secrecy. The container was also equipped with a life jacket to help it float after being released from the submarine, adding another layer of realism. Once the container was ready, the next challenge was to transport it from London, where the body was prepared, to the port of Greenock in Scotland, where the HMS Seraph was docked. This meant moving a large, suspicious-looking steel canister containing a dead body across hundreds of miles without attracting attention. For this task, British intelligence recruited an unusual courier, Jock Horsfall, a famous racing driver known for his daring style and penchant for driving without protective gear. Horsfall was almost legally blind, but had a reputation as a fearless driver, often dressed in stylish suits even while racing. His reputation for risk-taking and discretion made him an ideal candidate for such a high-stakes job. Horsfall drove a large 1937 Fortson van, normally used to transport racing cars, and loaded the canister carefully inside. He then set off on a nighttime journey covering over 400 miles from London to Greenock. The trip was tense and dangerous, with Horsfall narrowly avoiding accidents several times. Despite the risks, he managed to deliver the canister safely to the naval yard where the submarine was moored. At the dock, Horsfall and the intelligence officers, including the operation's key planners Charles Chumley and Montague, loaded the container onto the HMS Seraph. Most of the submarine crew remained unaware of the canister's contents, preserving the strict secrecy surrounding the mission. On April 19, 1943, the HMS Seraph set out under cover of darkness toward the Spanish coast near Huelva. After a tense journey lasting about 10 days, the submarine reached its drop-off point. It waited until the local fishing boats had cleared the area, then released the container into the water. The body of Major William Martin was gently lifted out and sent on its way to wash ashore as planned. Back in London, the intelligence officers anxiously awaited news of the body's discovery. For the operation to succeed, the body had to be found quickly by local Spanish authorities, and the documents it carried had to reach German intelligence through trusted channels. Within hours of being released from the submarine, the body was discovered by a local fisherman just 14 kilometers from Huelva. The fisherman, recognizing the uniform of a British military officer, alerted the local authorities, who took the body to the morgue. Given the sensitivity of the case, the British vice consul in Spain, Francis Hasseldine, was notified and sent to oversee the proceedings. The Spanish authorities, despite their official neutrality, had divided loyalties. While much of Spain's government and police were sympathetic to the Germans, the Spanish Navy tended to lean more toward Britain. This delicate balance meant that the handling of the body and documents was critical to avoid jeopardizing the mission. The Spanish doctor conducted an autopsy on Major Martin, carefully examining the body. Although the British had tried to make the death look like a drowning, the doctor considered performing a full autopsy, which could have revealed the truth behind the body's death and exposed the ruse. Vice Consul Hasseldine intervened, arguing that the hot weather had caused enough damage to the body and persuaded the doctor to limit the examination. The documents found in the briefcase attached to Major Martin's body were soaked but still legible. These papers contained carefully forged military letters and plans, suggesting that the Allies intended to invade Greece, not Sicily. The Spanish Navy took possession of the documents but passed them to the British vice consul, who insisted on formal channels for their return, thus maintaining the appearance of neutrality. Meanwhile, Adolf Klaus, the German spy in Huelva, quickly learned of the body and the documents. Klaus understood that finding such intelligence could boost his status within the Abwehr and potentially shift the balance of power in Spain. German agents worked hard to access and copy the documents, eventually sending the false invasion plans up the chain to Berlin. For British intelligence, every detail of the operation had to hold up under scrutiny. The documents had to be credible enough to convince the Germans, who were already wary of Allied deception efforts. The operation was a gamble, but if successful, it would force Germany to divert thousands of troops to Greece, weakening their defenses in Sicily. Operation Mincemeat was an extraordinary example of wartime ingenuity, combining elements of spycraft, disguise, and psychological warfare. The careful planning and execution of planting a dead body with false documents ultimately played a key role in the success of the Allied invasion of Sicily, saving countless lives and helping to turn the tide of the war in Europe. Following the successful delivery of the body of Major William Martin to the Spanish coast near Huelva, the critical phase of Operation Mincemeat entered a tense waiting period. The Allies now had to see whether the Germans would accept the false intelligence and adjust their military strategy accordingly. This period involved a complex dance of espionage, patience, and a good deal of hope. As soon as the body was discovered by a local fisherman, it sparked curiosity and urgency among Spanish authorities. Major Martin was treated as a real British officer who had tragically drowned. His uniform and personal effects lent authenticity to the story. But it was the documents he carried that were the real prize. The documents included letters from British military commanders, a brief from a supposed Lieutenant General Richard Donahue, and a map outlining plans for an Allied invasion of Greece and Sardinia. The papers suggested that the attack on Sicily was merely a diversion. These fabrications were carefully crafted to look genuine, complete with personal letters and references to people and places that seemed plausible. One important element was the inclusion of personal items designed to create a believable backstory. Major Martin was said to be engaged to a woman named Pam, and letters from her were included in the documents. These letters were meant to add emotional depth and realism, making it more likely the documents would be read carefully and passed on by German agents. Within days of the body's discovery, word reached the German intelligence network in Spain, particularly to Adolf Klaus, the Nazi spy stationed in Huelva. Klaus was known for his efficiency and dedication to the Nazi cause, making him an ideal target for British deception efforts. He immediately recognized the potential significance of the documents and moved quickly to get them into German hands. The route by which the documents traveled was not straightforward. Spain's neutrality meant that the Spanish government and its various agencies had to be careful about openly supporting either side in the conflict. However, elements within the Spanish police and navy were sympathetic to Germany, while others leaned toward the Allies. This created a complicated environment for the intelligence transfer. The Spanish naval attaché in Madrid played a critical role by ensuring the documents reached the German embassy, from where they were forwarded to Berlin. British intelligence had counted on this network of contacts and sympathizers to carry out the deception successfully. Back in London, British codebreakers at Bletchley Park closely monitored German communications. Using decrypted German messages, they looked for signs that the false intelligence was being accepted and acted upon. The initial results were encouraging. German forces began to redeploy significant numbers of troops away from Sicily toward Greece and Sardinia. This movement of troops demonstrated that the Germans believed the documents and were preparing for an invasion where none was planned. These diversions lessened the strength of German defenses in Sicily, creating a more favorable situation for the Allied invasion. The success of the deception also had a psychological impact on German commanders. Knowing that their intelligence network had been compromised by British counterintelligence efforts increased their distrust and confusion. This made it harder for them to interpret real Allied movements and intentions accurately. Operation Mincemeat was not without risks or potential pitfalls. Had the Spanish authorities discovered the truth about Major Martin, or had the Germans grown suspicious, the operation could have been exposed. This would have not only endangered the upcoming Allied invasion, but also compromised British intelligence operations more broadly. One critical moment came when the Spanish doctor considered performing a full autopsy on the body. A full examination could have revealed inconsistencies in the cause of death, or signs that the body had been preserved artificially. Vice Consul Hasseldine's diplomatic intervention prevented this, preserving the illusion. The British also had to rely on the goodwill and discretion of Jock Horsfall, the driver who had transported the body in the steel container, and the crew of the HMS Seraph. None of them fully knew the operation's details, which limited leaks, but also meant they had to trust the mission's planners implicitly. The ingenuity of the operation lay in its attention to detail and psychological insight. The British understood that simply fabricating false information was not enough. The story had to be believable and consistent with what the Germans expected to see. It had to play on German fears and strategic priorities, particularly their concern about the Balkans and the Eastern Mediterranean. Additionally, the operations planners recognized the importance of personalizing the deception. By creating the persona of Major William Martin, complete with a life story, personal letters, and official papers, they made the intelligence more convincing. This approach was innovative for its time and demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of human nature and espionage tactics. The success of Operation Mincemeat had far-reaching consequences. The Allied invasion of Sicily began on July 9, 1943, with a much-reduced German presence thanks to the diversion caused by the false intelligence. The invasion was a major success, leading to the eventual downfall of Mussolini's regime in Italy and opening up the Mediterranean for Allied naval and air operations. The operation also helped to solidify the reputation of British intelligence services as masters of deception. This reputation would later be enhanced by other deceptive campaigns, such as Operation Bodyguard, which misled the Germans about the location and timing of the D-Day invasion. After the war, the full details of Operation Mincemeat remained secret for many years. The operation was so sensitive that it was only publicly revealed in the 1950s. The story captured the public imagination, inspiring books, documentaries, and eventually films. One of the most fascinating aspects of the operation was how it combined many different elements: human intelligence, signals intelligence, diplomacy, and the use of a physical prop, the body itself, to tell a compelling story. It was not just an act of espionage, but also a carefully staged piece of theater designed to manipulate enemy perceptions. Operation Mincemeat's success showed that in warfare, information could be as powerful as guns and tanks. By shaping the enemy's beliefs and decisions, intelligence officers could influence the battlefield without firing a shot. The story also highlights the role of individuals who operated behind the scenes. From the anonymous body used in the operation to the intelligence officers, diplomats, and even the driver who moved the body across Britain, each person played a vital role in this complex puzzle. Major William Martin was not a real person, but the human impact of the operation was very real. Thousands of lives were saved by misleading the Germans and weakening their defenses at a critical moment. The bravery of those who participated, even in seemingly small roles, contributed to a larger victory in a global conflict. In reflecting on Operation Mincemeat, historians often point to it as a classic example of strategic deception. It combined creativity, courage, and meticulous planning to achieve a result that might have seemed impossible. The operation's legacy endures as a testament to the power of intelligence in modern warfare. Today, Operation Mincemeat is studied in military academies and intelligence training courses as a case study in successful deception. It reminds us that in times of war, understanding and manipulating information can be as decisive as any battlefield engagement. The operation also prompts reflection on the ethical dimensions of deception in warfare. While it undoubtedly contributed to Allied victory, it involved using a dead man's body as a tool, raising questions about respect for the dead and the limits of acceptable wartime tactics. Nevertheless, the operation's careful handling of the body and the fact that the identity of the deceased was kept secret to protect the family show a level of consideration even within the harsh realities of war. Operation Mincemeat stands as a shining example of how intelligence and deception can shape the course of a war. After the successful landing in Sicily, the operation's impact was felt not only on the battlefield but also in the broader strategic context of World War II. This final part of the story explores the aftermath, the wider implications, and the legacy of this daring intelligence mission. The invasion of Sicily, launched in early July 1943, was the first major Allied assault on Axis territory in Europe. It was a complex amphibious operation involving hundreds of thousands of troops, supported by extensive naval and air forces. The success of the landing owed much to the reduced German resistance, which was in part a direct consequence of the diversion created by Operation Mincemeat. German and Italian commanders had been convinced by the false documents that the Allies planned to strike elsewhere, particularly Greece and Sardinia. This deception forced them to scatter their defensive resources over a wider area, diluting the strength available to counter the actual invasion. The strategic consequences were significant. The fall of Sicily opened the way for the Allied invasion of mainland Italy, leading to Mussolini's eventual overthrow and Italy's surrender. It also freed up Allied forces to focus on the advance through Western Europe. The success of the Mediterranean campaign boosted Allied morale and demonstrated the growing effectiveness of combined arms and intelligence operations. In the immediate aftermath, British and American intelligence services studied Operation Mincemeat closely to understand what made it so successful. Lessons learned from the operation helped shape future deception campaigns, including those supporting the Normandy landings in 1944. One key takeaway was the importance of attention to detail. The careful creation of a believable identity for Major William Martin, complete with personal letters, official documents, and physical evidence such as clothing and receipts, convinced the enemy to accept the story as truth. This level of thoroughness became a hallmark of later operations. Another lesson was the need to manage the entire information chain, from the creation of the false documents to their delivery and the monitoring of enemy reactions. Every stage had to be tightly controlled. British intelligence coordinated closely with Spanish authorities, naval officers, and even civilians involved in the operation to maintain secrecy and ensure the plan unfolded as intended. The operation also highlighted the value of interdisciplinary cooperation. Military strategists, intelligence officers, diplomats, and even forensic experts worked together to create a convincing narrative. This multifaceted approach broadened the tools available for deception beyond traditional spycraft. Operation Mincemeat's success also relied heavily on understanding the enemy's mindset. British planners anticipated how German intelligence officers would interpret the documents and what their concerns were regarding Allied intentions. This psychological insight allowed the deception to be tailored to what would seem plausible and alarming to the Germans. The operation's legacy extended beyond its immediate military impact. It captured the imagination of the public and historians alike, becoming a symbol of ingenuity in the face of adversity. The story has been told in books, documentaries, and films, helping to educate new generations about the role of intelligence in warfare. One of the most famous accounts of the operation was written by Ewan Montague, one of the key architects of the plan. His book, published in the 1950s, provided an inside view of the planning and execution, revealing how the British intelligence community combined creativity and precision. Over time, additional details have emerged, enriching the understanding of the operation. For example, the identity of the man whose body was used, Glyndwr Michael, a homeless man who died in London, has been uncovered, providing a human dimension to the story. Ethical questions about Operation Mincemeat have been discussed by scholars and ethicists. The use of a corpse as a tool in deception raises issues about respect for the dead and the boundaries of acceptable wartime conduct. British authorities took care to maintain the anonymity of the body to protect Michael's family and ensure dignity. But the moral implications remain complex. In terms of military history, Operation Mincemeat is often cited as one of the most successful deception operations of all time. It helped establish the importance of misinformation as a weapon and contributed to the development of modern intelligence doctrines that emphasize psychological operations and information warfare. The operation also demonstrated the potential of combining human intelligence with signals intelligence and diplomacy to achieve strategic goals. The integration of these fields set a precedent for intelligence operations in the post-war era and during the Cold War. Operation Mincemeat's influence can be seen in later covert operations and psychological campaigns, where creating false narratives and manipulating enemy perceptions have become standard tactics. The principles of deception it demonstrated remain relevant in today's intelligence landscape. In the broader context of World War II, the operation exemplified the increasing sophistication of Allied intelligence efforts. By 1943, the Allies had developed a highly effective intelligence apparatus, including code breaking at Bletchley Park, espionage networks across Europe, and propaganda campaigns aimed at undermining Axis morale. The success of Operation Mincemeat reinforced the belief that intelligence could decisively shape military outcomes, influencing both strategy and tactics. It also encouraged further investment in deception capabilities, which became a core part of Allied war planning. Despite its success, the operation was just one part of a much larger intelligence effort during the war. It complemented other initiatives, such as Ultra, which involved breaking German codes, and Double Cross, which controlled enemy agents. Together, these efforts created a comprehensive intelligence framework that gave the Allies a significant advantage. The story of Operation Mincemeat also sheds light on the role of lesser-known individuals who contributed to wartime efforts. From the medical examiners who helped prepare the body to the sailors who transported it across the Mediterranean. Many people played vital but often unrecognized roles. Their collective contributions remind us that intelligence operations are not solely about spies or commanders, but rely on a wide range of skills and cooperation. This understanding broadens the historical perspective on how wars are won and the diverse efforts involved. As time has passed, Operation Mincemeat has continued to fascinate researchers and enthusiasts of espionage history. Its combination of audacity, creativity, and careful execution offers valuable lessons for intelligence professionals and historians. In recent years, the operation has also inspired artistic works, including films and novels that explore the human stories behind the deception. These portrayals often highlight the tension, risk, and moral complexity involved, bringing the history to life for modern audiences. Looking ahead, Operation Mincemeat's story serves as a reminder of the power of information and the impact that well-crafted deception can have in shaping world events. It also underscores the importance of adaptability and innovation in intelligence work. In an age where information flows rapidly and misinformation can spread widely, the principles demonstrated by Operation Mincemeat remain pertinent. The operation exemplifies how strategic thinking and psychological insight can turn even the most unlikely circumstances to one's advantage. Ultimately, Operation Mincemeat is more than a wartime story. It is a case study in human ingenuity, the complexities of war, and the enduring importance of intelligence in securing peace and victory. Its lessons continue to resonate, reminding us that sometimes the most powerful weapon is a carefully told lie.